Stop buying bad PSUs. Let's get you the best PC power supply 2025. Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. Buying the best power supply for PC in 2025, it's totally confusing. There's tons of weird terms like ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.0, 12-volt high power connectors, and more. But worse yet, the old advice, just buying an 80+ gold rated unit, it's proven to be terrible, sometimes even dangerous. So in this Best PC PSU 2025 buying guide, we're gonna cover the key information to get you the best power supply in 2025, and we'll make specific product recommendations for every budget level. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like, it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 10 or 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. Now the power supply, abbreviated PSU, comes in different sizes. ATX size PSUs, those are the most common and they fit most ATX and micro ATX size cases. Smaller SFX power supplies are from mini ITX PC cases. They tend to be a bit more expensive. For cables, some budget PSUs are still using non-modular, meaning they come with all the cables permanently attached. But in 2025, most mid-range and higher-end PSUs are modular, where the cables can be removed if you don't need them. Now, huge warning here. Do not blow up your PC by mixing and matching PSU cables from a different brand or even a different model. While the connections on the PC side, those are standard, the connections on the PSU side are not. So do not destroy your PC by using cables that are not designed for it. If you want to extend the reach or add color to your PC build, you can buy a PSU cable extension. These plug into the ends of the existing cables, not into the PSU itself, and they typically cost around $25 to $50. Some companies like CableMod do make colored cables that are designed as full cable replacements for your PSU. Just make sure to order the correct one for your PSU model. Now, one troubleshooting note here, if you have any issues with your GPU or your PC that seem possibly hardware related, I recommend you remove any cable extensions and use the original cables that came with your PSU. In my experience, this is probably the #1 most common fix. Let's talk about GPU power cables, starting with the tried and true 8-pin. Usually is a 6+2-pin cable, but also called the 8-pin. Most of these cables have a second 6+2-pin cable on the same physical cable. In 2025, I recommend using separate cables for each GPU connection, but it is okay to daisy chain them if you run out of individual connections. These connectors need to be pushed together properly with the plastic guide on the +2 cable going above the +6 cable part. Otherwise, the cable will not seat properly, and again, this can cause you GPU power issues. And note that on newer PSUs, sometimes one of the 8-pin cables will use the 12-volt high power cable connection on the PSU side. Then we've got the controversial 12-pin high-volt power cable, sometimes called the 16-pin, which NVIDIA has made standard on their GPUs since the RTX 30 series. Though most NVIDIA GPUs do come with adapters for the 8-pin PSU cables as well. Now, these cables have been prone to melting, particularly when they're bent too much near the connection point for either the PSU or the GPU. PSU maker Seasonic recommends not bending the 12-volt high power cable in the first 35mm or 1.4 inches to make sure it's fully seated. The pins for this adapter were redesigned to supposedly fix this issue and are called 12-volt 2x6 and found on PSUs labeled as ATX 3.1. Note that those redesigned pins are on the PSU side and the GPU side, as the cable itself actually doesn't have any physical pins. Let's quickly cover the other cables that come with your PSU and what they're for. The 20+4-pin adapter cable, also called the 24-pin cable, that powers your motherboard and it plugs into the right side of the motherboard. The 4+4 EPS power cable also supplies power to the motherboard and typically plugs into the top left of the motherboard. Sometimes these cables have helpful connectors to keep the 4-pin plugs together, as is the case with their Asus Prime 850-watt unit. Some motherboards do have additional connections for a second EPS cable, and while most boards will run with only one EPS cable attached, I recommend getting a PSU that has enough EPS cables for your motherboard. Then we've got SATA power cables, which power both SATA drives, but also a lot of AIO pumps, fans, and RGB controllers, and other devices. And you'll still find Molex power connectors as well, though very few devices use these any longer. So how do you buy the best PSU in 2025? We want it to cleanly supply the power that our PC needs, but also want to protect it if something goes wrong. Basically, how do you avoid buying an exploding power supply? First, ignore the 80+ rating because they are largely meaningless. We've seen gold-rated power supplies explode while bronze ones go strong. And honestly, the power savings difference between even the lowest rated 80+ white PSU and the best 80+ titanium unit, it's tiny, even over years. Now, previously we used the PSU Cultist list, but it hasn't been updated in over 2 years. So I'm now recommending a new list called the SFF PSU Tier List. The SFF PSU Tier List is being actively maintained as a public Google Sheet by lead author SPL and other experts from Zach's Tech Turf Discord, so I want to say a big thank you for picking up the baton and carrying on. They look at teardown reviews of all the units, they check the specs, and determine the quality of the unit with a letter grade, with A being the best, B being good, C being a budget unit, and anything below that, just avoid it for a gaming PC. These ratings include the quality of the components, the PSU power delivery design, the protections on the PSU that prevent it from blowing up, and how steady the power is supplied, something called ripple. The SFF PSU tier list fully describes their methodology and contains a full listing by manufacturer for all units, where enough is known to give a final grade, as well as a separate list of PSUs where they take a guess at the grade for PSUs without enough information. My recommendation, start with a list with proper recommendations. If you don't find it there, then check the larger list with speculative grades, though I'd really want to buy something that has a proper grade. I've linked the list down in the video description. In terms of comparison between the PSU Cultist list and the SPL list, the SPL list has more stringent requirements, particularly for Tier A. So you might find that some of the PSUs that we had classified on the PSU Cultist list or speculatively classified them as Tier A because it hadn't been updated for a couple of years. You may find they're actually Tier B on the SPL list. Going forward, we are just going to use the SPL list. So what tier of PSU should you use in your next PC build or upgrade? Well, no matter what, I would never go below C tier, and I always prefer to get a better rated unit if the price is similar. At the budget build level, C tier, it's probably fine. As we go up in component power draw and the price of the system increases, you can kind of think of this going up a tier like insurance. So for mid-range price builds, I'd look for a B or an A tier rated unit. At the high end, I would only use an A tier rated PSU, especially when using high power draw parts or if I'm intending to heavily overclock the CPU or the GPU. But what about ATX 3.0, ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.0, PCIe 5.1? What does all that mean for power supplies? Well, ATX and PCIe are standards for different computer parts, including power supplies. ATX 3.0 and PCIe 5.0 help power supplies handle sudden power spikes from GPUs and CPUs better. ATX 3.1 changed the 12-volt high power cable to a safer 2x6 pin design, helping to stop cables from melting. If you're buying an NVIDIA GPU, I would choose an ATX 3.1 power supply. For AMD or Intel GPUs, ATX 3.0 is fine, but many newer power supplies are already switching to ATX 3.1 anyway. So how many watts does your PSU need? Well, in order to account for things like transient power spikes, where your GPU or your CPU might draw several times its rated power over a very brief period of time, I recommend sizing your PSU at least 1.5 times the rated power draw in PC Part Picker. If my rated draw of all my components in there is 500 watts, then multiplying that by 1.5 gives a 750 watt minimum PSU. Of course, bigger is always fine as well. If you end up with a weird number like 715 watts, then I recommend just rounding up or down to the nearest 50 watt mark. In this case, 700 watts would be likely fine. For the vast majority of builds, this method usually results in recommending PSU wattages from 600 to 850 watts, with most of the rest covered by 1000 watt units and only a handful of current configurations requiring more than 1000 watts. From a cost perspective, it's relatively small price difference for peace of mind. Let's jump into our specific product recommendations for best PSU 2025. all of which will be linked down in the video description. We're going to keep this list up to date if things sell out or prices change, maybe new units come on the market. So check out those links for current pricing and availability in your region. Let's jump to the best PSU 2025 at the ultra high end. So we're talking 1300 watt or higher rated units. And because we're dealing with this amount of wattage on them, I'm basically not going to cut any corners on you. They have to not only be ATX 3.1, they actually have to claim ATX 3.1 in the marketing on the retail page. There's a lot of PSUs out there right now where they've refreshed the PSU, but they're using old packaging, still says 3.0. I want to make sure you get that 12 volt 2x6 connector on here for sure. So we're going to go with just kind of hardcore units here. ASRock, brand new to the PSU space, but doing really, really well with their initial units, at least in the ASRock Phantom gaming lineup. This is a 1600 watt unit for just $279, totally insane value. And with this, you get ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1. You get enough cable connections basically to do like a dual system if you do a dual system build in some of the larger cases out there, to 12 volt high power, and that's the 2x6 connector out there. Again, incredible value for $279. Typically these PSUs sell for at least $50 to $100 more. The other one I'm going to include here is one that we've used in the past. That's the Superflower LEDX 7. Now this also does come in white, by the way. So this is 80 plus gold, but this is a fantastic unit. We use this in our video editing PC with an RTX 4090 and a Ryzen 7950X in it. 2 thumbs up on this one right here. Dead quiet, by the way. Absolutely love this PSU. Again, it does come in all white as well. Now, I don't know if the cable connections are actually white themselves, because nowhere on the manufacturer's website or even in the marketing photos do they actually show the cables. Come on, Superflower. You might know Superflower because not only are they a brand, but they actually manufacture the PSUs themselves, and they also manufacture PSUs for other brands. Let's jump into the best PSU 2025. These are going to be A-tier rated units, anywhere from 650 watts up to potentially 1200 watt units. Let's start off with one I almost did not include on this list because it's very, very expensive, which is $129 for 750 watts for the ASRock Phantom Gaming. This is the Phantom Gaming, the same one that we recommended for the 1600 watt unit. You're like, Jason, okay, 750 watt, $129. There's other A-tier rated units out there that are ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1 out there with a 12 volt 2x6 cable out there for a lot less than $129. Why am I recommending this one? Yes, fully modular. Yes, it looks super cool. But one thing is, if you want a super premium PSU, especially with an NVIDIA GPU, and you're going to use that 12 volt 2x6 cable, this actually comes with a thermistor in the cable itself for the GPU side, that when you plug it in, if it goes over a certain temperature, it will shut it down. It will prevent your cable from melting. Based on that feature alone, because I don't see that anybody else is really offering that, based on that feature alone, I'm going to go ahead and list this. Just know it's not the best price to performance one out there, but if you want like ultimate cable melting protection for those NVIDIA GPUs, this is the one to get. Next up on the list is a really great A-tier rated unit that's super, super value oriented. So this is the XPG Core Reactor 2, but this is the VE version. The VE version came out afterwards. This is the ATX 3.1 update. Includes the 12 volt high power, the 2x6 connector on there for those NVIDIA GPUs out there. And I don't know why, but this one's even cheaper than the old version, probably because the old version is being phased out. Overall, great unit, comes with tons of cables. 750 watts right now for $85 is totally insane. I think it's on a sale right now. Typically, you'll find this more like $100, like $99. That's usually what these go for, but comes as low as 650 watts. Just note that on the Amazon page here, I'm noticing it looks like they just copy pasted the listings from the old one. So they say ATX 3.0, even though it's 3.1. So right here it's 3.1 and it's listed 3.1. The VE is the update for it. So just know you're getting the 3.1, but just make sure you're buying the VE version, not the original Core Reactor 2 version on it. Again, really great pricing for these. In fact, 850 watts right now, it's only $110. That's completely insane. 1,000 watts doing pretty well too at $170. So this is a great unit, especially for those of you looking to do something super budget conscious, but still stay in A tier. Here's a unit we recommend and actually use all the time. This is the Be Quiet Pure Power 12M. Now, warning, there is a newly introduced Pure Power 12 without the M that is not A tier rated, but the 12M is A tier rated. I'm showing the 850 watt unit right now because 750 watts completely sold out. Typically, you'll find that one right around $100. $120 for the 850 watt unit, PCIe 5.1 and ATX 3.1 compliant. I absolutely love these. They're very, very quiet. The only issue I've ever had with these is on the 750 watt unit, there's this sticker on the side here. And for whatever reason, maybe we got one that was designed improperly or put together improperly. When you flipped it upside down with the fan facing down, as you often do in a PC build, I had a cutout in the PSU shroud. You could see this sticker and it really did kind of look ugly, kind of made me mad. Not an issue with any of the other wattages, by the way, just for the 750. And again, maybe I just got a weird unit that was manufactured improperly or something like that. All the other ones, you get the really nice looking Be Quiet logo on it. In terms of pricing, tends to be really, really good. Often goes on sale. Right now for 1,000 watts, $160. That's one of the cheaper ones out there. 650 watts, again, A tier rated, $90, not too bad. Again, one of the better units out there. There are a ton of PSUs out there that are ATX 3.0, but not 3.1. And I know some of you don't care about 3.1 because that's really for NVIDIA GPUs out there. You have an AMD Radeon GPU, maybe you're getting an Intel GPU and you just want an A tier rated unit and you might want to find a good deal. I like the Thermaltake Tough Power GF3. Now note, there is also one called the GF-A3. That one is B tier rated. This is still A tier rated. Don't make that mistake. I actually made that mistake myself. $89 for 750 watts. It's a quiet unit, looks great. Very, very good in terms of the cables and everything else. Great unit if you can pick it up on a discount. Jumping over the best PSU 2025. This is the B tier. And I will say this year, not as much price difference between the A and the B tiers. So honestly, grab an A tier unit if you can. However, these units often do go on sale. I will say some of these were A tier under the PSU Cultist list and now they're B tier under the SPL list. So let's go through them. Corsair RM750E, again, it was A tier under the PSU Cultist list. This is the 2025 revision. It's got a lower noise fan. Apparently they fixed whatever issue that they had with the fan in the 2023 version. And it's ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1. Got modular cables. In fact, I have the 2023 version in my PC. I like it quite a bit. So if you can find a good deal on it, 2 thumbs up. MSI Mag. Now this is the A-GL lineup. So there's 750 watt all the way up to about 1,000 watts on these. PCIe 5.1, ATX 3.1 again. And I will say I do like these quite a bit. I have heard a little bit of a complaints about the noise. However, in the ones we've used, they've actually been super quiet. So I don't know if those folks just got a bad unit. Sometimes you get a bad fan bearing or something in there. 750 watts, $95. That's not terrible. However, often does go on sale. Another one that often does go on sale, although I don't like the price, $99 right now. Cooler Master, MWE, and this is the V3 version. So this is ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1. Really good overall unit in terms of noise as well. Often you'll find this for like $85, down to $80 sometimes. That's where I would probably look to pick it up. Let's jump into the best budget PSU 2025. So these are C tier rated units. We're gonna give you 3 different options out there. Just know that there's tons and tons of these out there, but I'm gonna give you the 3 that I like the best, price to performance in the US. Let's start off with Montech, the APX. Now, what are our criteria for these, by the way? We're not going to ATX 3.1, all that. No, good enough, just good enough, right? So I like the Montech APX lineup. It comes in 550 watt, 650 watt, 750 watt units out there. I really wouldn't go up too high in wattage at C tier. I'd at least want to go to B tier before I went to any kind of higher wattage units out there. And $55 right now for 750 watt. I mean, what else do you really want out there? That is an insane value. In fact, I really think that Montech, at least in the US, Montech and MSI really dominate the market. Let's jump into the next unit. In fact, that's going to be the MSI Mag A650BE. This is an updated version of the A650BN that we've used a lot on this channel. We've used the 750 watt unit, we've used the 650 watt unit, even the 550 watt unit. However, the BE comes with an extra EPS cable. The cables are no longer just the cables themselves, they're actually sleeved now, which I really like. Kind of an overall nice upgrade all around to this thing. And again, relatively cheap, although I will say Montech does a little bit better in terms of its cheapness, but they don't come with the braided cables and all that kind of stuff. And I will say the BE units are now semi-modular, so the 24 pin is attached to it. However, the rest of them are semi-modular, so that is super nice as well. Another unit out there, listen, Apevia, except for this unit, Apevia's PSUs are generally not good at all. However, the Prestige 600 watt, this is a good one. This really got us through the hard times of the lockdowns and the shortages out there when it was really tough to get budget PSUs. This is a one we were often turning to, and it's still very good at $52 for 600 watts. Again, it's going to give you all the cables that you need. However, they're all going to be in a mass attached to the PSU itself. This is not a modular PSU. but that's absolutely fine, especially for budget builds out there. Let's jump to the best small form factor PSU 2025. So this is best SFX PSU 2025. I'm going to start off with one that is ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.0, even though it doesn't say on this front page here. If you go down in the marketing materials, it is definitely, that is the Corsair SF 750 and Corsair SF 850, along with the Corsair SF 1000. So that's 750 watt, 850 watt, 1000 watt units. $179 for 750 watts. Pretty expensive. That's typical of these kinds of things, but it is right here. It says ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1. And if you scroll down into the marketing materials even further, it reassures you that this is in fact ATX 3.1. So you will get the cable connection for the 12 volt 2x6 as well. So 2 thumbs up there. Again, starting at $179, A-tier rated PSUs. We're not going to mess around with anything else. A lot of PSUs out there, unfortunately, for small form factor are total trash. So you do have to be very, very careful on which ones you get. Remember to check those links down in the video description. Then we get into units that are ATX 3.0, not quite 3.1, although this unit here, the Cooler Master V850, is supposed to have an update to 3.1 coming out later this year. It's just not here just yet. As soon as it is, I will leave it linked down in the video description because Cooler Master does a pretty good job in terms of price to performance. You can see 850 watts here for $142. Again, though, ATX 3.0. But if you're using like an AMD Radeon GPU, you don't care about ATX 3.1. This would be a great one to have. And then finally wrapping up, we got the Asus ROG Loki SFX. Now, SFX-L means it's a little bit longer than a typical SFX power supply. Always check your case compatibility, especially some of those super tight cases. Now, this is ATX 3.0. That's just what it's rated here. I thought these were supposed to be 3.1. Maybe there's a 3.1 revision that we saw at CES. It's coming. Hasn't hit here. When it does, again, I'll update those links. So right now, this is ATX 3.0. Again, if you're using a Radeon GPU, you don't really care about that. These are kind of expensive. Now, they are super nice. They got RGB on them. They look really nice. $189 right now for 750 watts, goes up from there. Also comes in 850 watt, 1000 watt, and 1200 watt units. Remember, everything's linked down in the video description. Check out those links for current pricing and availability in your region. Remember, if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this little kitty right here. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content, and we'll catch you on the next one.